Ever had that moment when you realize you are on both sides of a police chase? I arrested a man last month who turned out to be an undercover detective from my own department. After 8 years on the force and 3 as a narcotics detective, I thought I'd seen every bizarre situation possible. Then came the night that nearly ended 2 careers and has become legendary in our precinct. It was 2 a.m. on a Tuesday, that strange hour when only 2 types of people are typically out: those who work the graveyard shift and those up to no good. I was working undercover in a neighborhood that had seen a spike in heroin sales, dressed in my finest hasn't showered in 3 days aesthetic that had taken me months to perfect. I'd been watching a particular corner store for weeks. The owner closed at midnight, but the side door would mysteriously open every few hours for quick transactions. Kubright was my night to finally catch them in the act. As I slouched against a wall across the street, a man approached who immediately set off my internal alarms. Hoodie pulled low, hands in pockets, constantly checking over his shoulder, caplactic nervous buyer behavior. He paced near the store's side door, checking his phone repeatedly. When the door cracked open, I saw the quick exchange, small package for cash. Pripe book drug deal. I radioed my position and description to my backup team and moved to intercept him as he walked away. "Police, stop right there," I shouted. Badge out, hand on my weapon. Instead of stopping, he bolted down the alley. I pursued, calling in the foot chase. Suspect heading east through the alley behind Martin Street. 2 blocks later, I tackled him to the ground. He fought hard, minus harder than most street-level buyers, and managed to flip over, reaching toward his waistband gun. I yelled, drawing my weapon. "Hands where I can see them. I am on the job," he shouted back. "Detective, I am a detective." In that split second of hesitation, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a badge from my own department. We both froze, guns pointed at each other. "Badges out in the world's most confusing standoff, narcotics?" I asked, still not lowering my weapon. "Vice," he replied, equally tense. That's when our radios both crackled simultaneously with the same message from dispatch, and the absurdity of the situation hit us like a ton of bricks. Turns out Vice had been investigating the store owner for running a prostitution ring out of the back room, while Narcotics, my unit, was watching the same location for drug activity. Neither department had coordinated with the other. The package I thought was drugs, a burner phone with contact information for the operation. As we both slowly lowered our weapons, I heard the thunder of approaching footsteps, minus both our backup teams converging from different directions. "This is going to be awkward," he muttered. "Police umps ord, uns arig," came simultaneous shouts from both ends of the alley. "Stand predit," we both yelled in unison, badges held high. "Friendly?" The next 10 minutes were a masterclass in professional embarrassment as 2 separate police operations collided in one alley. Our sergeants arrived and engaged in what might be the most intense whisper argument I've ever witnessed, each blaming the other's department for the lack of communication. By sunrise, the story had spread through the entire precinct. By noon, the captain had called an emergency department-wide meeting about inter-unit communication protocols. By the end of the week, the detective I'd tackled and I were required to present a training session on recognizing undercover officers, essentially teaching a class on how not to arrest your colleagues, the store owner. He was eventually arrested for both charges. Racked out, he was running drugs and a prostitution ring. At his arraignment, he couldn't stop laughing when he found out 2 separate undercover operations had been watching his store simultaneously for months. The detective and I now have a standing lunch date every Tuesday. We call it our arrest VZ. Last week, he gave me a custom mug that says, "I tackled a cop," and all I got was this lousy paperwork. The department has since implemented a new cross-check system for undercover operations. They're calling it the Martin Street Protocol. Sometimes I still wake up in a cold sweat, thinking about what could have happened if either of us had been a half-second quicker on the trigger. But mostly I am grateful for the reminder that in police work, your biggest danger isn't always who you think it is. And yes, I still have to show ID at the precinct Christmas party. Some jokes never die.